Hey y'all, I'm Tim. Welcome to the Mr. Maple Show. Make sure to like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and sign up for our weekly emails on MrMaple.com. We add 10 new trees every single Tuesday at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, so you'll want to check that out for sure. Now today we've got a top 5 for you for conifers here at MrMaple.com. These are conifers currently available at MrMaple.com. If we're currently sold out of one of these that I'll be talking about today, you can go to MrMaple.com, put your email address in when you click notify me, and we'll notify you when these trees become available at a future date. You know, conifers, they're fantastic. We love conifers because they provide such good evergreen interest in the landscape and garden. They make good pairings with a lot of Japanese maples as well, because Japanese maples give you some really nice spring, some really good fall color. You pair those with some evergreen, you've got a great garden out there in your landscape. You know, we've got some great conifers going down the list, so let's go ahead and get started. We've got Picea engelmannii Bush's lace. This is an Engelmann spruce. Now, Engelmann spruce, they're really unusual. Sometimes people get them confused with Picea pungens, the blue Colorado blue spruce. But Picea engelmannii, it's a little less blue, looks almost like a powdery blue color to it. And Bush's lace was actually a selection that has a weeping habit. So it has a nice central leader that grows upward with a nice weeping habit. Now, if you're growing a Colorado blue spruce and they grow up to like 10,000 feet, engelmannii starts growing at 9,000 feet and grows even higher elevations. So if you've got high elevation, engelmannii will do fantastic for you. You know, I've seen Alex Ruckelman say New Jersey, Bush's lace does fantastic for him as well. Edwin Schmitz actually says online that this was actually found in a field of Picea pungens, so it may actually be a hybrid between the two. This plant just gives you some good blue color out there in the landscape. It makes a good evergreen interest with a nice weeping habit. Bush's lace, great tree you need to use in your garden. I love the blue colors. The blue colors contrast so well with the reds and the yellows and the greens that you get with your Japanese maples. It really makes a tree that's going to do something very well out there in the landscape and give you some good evergreen interest. So next up, we've got Pinus flexus Vanderwolf's pyramid. This is a tree that's going to be good zones 5 through 7. You know, I don't know if I mentioned this, but the Engelmann spruce, that's good zones 3 through 8. So, I mean, extremely cold hardy, 5 through 7 on the Vanderwolf pyramid. Now, Vanderwolf pyramid, as the name suggests, has a nice pyramidal shape. So it's not going to get very wide, but it's going to give you some really good blue color. Again, the blues contrast so well with so many things out there in the landscape and garden. But the thing I love about Vanderwolf's pyramid are these long blue needles. I mean, these needles are very long. It gives this plant a very fluffy, a very lively habit, and a really good texture out there in the landscape and garden. But then with that narrow habit, it's so easy to use out in the landscape. I mean, this is a plant you can put out there, and it doesn't take up a lot of space out there in the garden, but still gives you some good evergreen interest and great blue color. I've seen people plant these as a screen since they're so narrow. They don't take up a lot of space, but they can also be used as a specimen out in the landscape to really just give you a very nice habit and that blue color out there. Pinus flexilis is a great pine to use out in the landscape and garden, and that silver blue color just makes that tree shine. Next up, we've got a tree from going to a tree that goes taller to a much smaller Hinoki cypress. We've got Chamaecyparis obtusa Camina heba. Now, I may not be pronouncing that correctly, but it's got a really, really cool name that you can try to pronounce. So if anyone's got any tips on pronouncing that one, put that in the comments. I'd really appreciate it. But this plant has a very tight, compact habit. And it's a Hinoki cypress that gives you some good yellow color. Push this tree out with a little more sunlight to really peak up these yellow colors. But for an evergreen, this is a plant that'll get about 3 to 4 feet tall, 3 to 4 foot wide in 10, 15 years. So it's a really slow growing tree. I saw a really good specimen of this out at the gardens in Ohio at the Dawes Arboretum. And I mean, it was probably I'm guessing a 30-year-old specimen because it had some good size to it. But it still has this almost mutated like growth to it that gives it a unique texture for Hinoki cypress. Now, being it's such a slow grower, it's great for small places in the garden. It doesn't get very tall, so you don't have to worry about it blocking the view of other things out behind it. But this tree also gives color in a small space. This makes it great for conifer troughs. This makes it great to be in pairs with Japanese maples, where you could pair this with something like a Tamukiyama or a Bloodgood to really contrast off the red colors. Excellent way to use Camina heba. I mean, this plant gives you just that electric, bright yellow color. So being a Hinoki cypress, this is good zones 4 through 8. That means you can go down a zone colder than your Japanese maples with this, all the way to zone 8. And in zone 8, you may need to give it some protection from the hot afternoon sun if you're in one of those hotter zone 8s. So next up, we've got Pinus parviflora gojen. Now, I love the Japanese white pines. The white pines from Japan are so unique and so different. This particular one has very, very short needles, one of the more shorter needled Japanese white pines, but it has a little bit of a twist to the needle. Now, the habit on gojen is shorter and more bushy. So you're going to have a plant that almost makes that bonsai type feel by itself. It could easily be trained into a bonsai as well. I love what the Japanese white pines do out in the landscape and garden. I know Brian Rule always says, hey, I picked out this tree, and it's almost always, if he's going for conifers, a Japanese white pine. I mean, the white pines, they draw my desires for the garden as well, because they're just so unique and different. And as you can see, the way these plants just have space, but it has it filled with needles that are short and dense, it makes you almost think of like a Makawa pine, and that's what draws me to it. Now, what they do is they have this sort of bluish kind of silver kind of color to the needles, so it gives good color out in the landscape that contrasts very well with your Japanese maples as well. That's how I see conifers all the time, is how do they pair with Japanese maples. And this one does it extremely well, probably because it's from Japan. I mean, the Japanese white pines, they're electric. Now, gojen is a plant that'll end up getting about 4 to 5 feet tall by about 4 to 5 foot wide in 10 years with a really unique shape to it. This plant is a tree you can use out in the landscape and garden as a full specimen all by itself, or out there pairing with your other plants. Excellent evergreen interest that just gives you a very unique, distinct texture and shape when it comes to conifers. And Japanese white pines, they rock. Gojen, it definitely does as well. And lastly today, we've got a Pinus mugo. Now, many people think of the dwarf Pinus mugos that are very low growing. This is more of one that has a nice conical shape, like a Christmas tree. We're talking about Pinus mugo Tannenbaum. Now, Tannenbaum has that perfect symmetrical shape, often used as a screen plant, can be used out there in the landscape and garden as well. This is a plant that just has that nice green color to it. I mean, and the shape just reminds you so much of a Christmas tree. It's going to be a great tree to grow out there during the winter months, especially before Christmas, and wrap with Christmas lights. I mean, that's exactly what you think about when you think about this tree's shape. I mean, excellent tree to use out in the landscape and garden. Its pyramidal shape makes it so easy for a lot of people out there. Now, this is a plant that will grow zones 3 through 8. So you can actually take this down much colder than many of your Japanese maples. Excellent, excellent tree to screen out those neighbors, but is also an excellent tree just to put out there and enjoy its unique shape. Love these conifers, and what conifers do in your garden is they add a unique evergreen interest, and you can get some colors that are very unique and different to conifers that you can't get out of Japanese maples. But when you pair these across your garden with your Japanese maples, it brings your garden to life. In those winter months when you've got just your coral barks and some unique structures on Japanese maples, you can add some needles out there that really brings that lively feel to your garden. These are our top 5 conifers on Mr. Maple right now that are available. You know, again, some of these may be sold out at a later date. Make sure you sign up to be notified when these trees become available again. We really hope you enjoyed today's top 5 conifers at Mr. Maple. Take care, God bless, and have a great day.